The final movie tonight is a classic slasher, My Bloody Valentine from 1981. In a small town of Valentine's Bluff, there is a Valentine's Day party planned, but this incurs the wrath of a 20-year-old killer who may have escaped from a mental, insane asylum. And so while these teenagers are trying to set up this party, the police chief and mayor are getting houts in boxes instead of chocolate, which is unfortunate. And so we eventually have the party cancelled. But the kids decide, hey, half of us work in the mine. Let's just hold a party at the mine, and that'll be okay. And they do, and then things happen. This is a movie. I'm a big slasher guy, but this movie more so than any is a movie I really enjoy. I really like the design of the killer in this movie, the mining suit and the pickaxe. I think the kills in this movie are pretty top notch. Especially if you see the uncut version, which was, for a long time, the MPAA had, sort of cut out some of those scenes, but it was, I think, finally released back in 2009 when the remake came out. So, I mean, if you see the cut version, it's still a decent movie, but if you get the uncut, I think you have maybe a little better time. I don't know, I also really like the characters in this movie, and to be honest, it's not much about this movie I have problems with. But, well, I guess what are your thoughts on this one?
Yeah. You brought up a lot of points that I had down here.
I'm sorry.
So one of the first points you made is the design or the appearance of the killer in the movie, which I also think is one of the best out of all the slasher movies out there. One of the best. The mining suit and the pickaxe, it's, it just looks really cool for a slasher killer type character. And another point that you mentioned with the uncut version, and I guess to add to that, is just, and you really have to see the uncut version just to see how significant those cuts were, because it's not like just an extra 1 second here, 2 seconds there. Literally, the majority of the deaths in this movie have an extra, at least maybe 10 seconds on average added back to those scenes for each kill. Actual like gory, violent scenes, not just like an extra few seconds of someone looking at someone. It's actually like, seeing pickaxe through their head, and yeah, it's just. I mean, you can kind of see why it got cut, or at least some of it got cut. Maybe they cut way too much, but I think there's a glaring difference between the cut version and the uncut version. Like, it's just night and day difference in terms of pretty much every kill in the movie.
Yeah, and no, my favorite one is the pickaxe to the face.
Yeah.
But another one I really like is when this one individual gets his heart sort of pushed down into boiling water, and you can see sort of the flash peeling off his face, and I don't know, I think that's pretty effective, and I don't know, this is a movie that when I first got this on DVD, I watched it like 3 times in that week, and it's a movie that never failed to entertain me. I mean, even like the characters. Like, TJ and Axel are, decently interesting. But then you have, like, characters like Hollis, Hollis might be one of my favorite characters, side characters in slasher movie. I just love that guy. And, I don't know, even some of, like, the women, like Hollis's girlfriend, I think it was Patty. She was a pretty nice individual, I liked her dialogue. Some of it's a bit ridiculous, but I don't know. It's a movie that has a great atmosphere, just so many things going for it. So it's a shame that this movie existed for like 25, 30 years without the, extra footage of the chaos, because I suspect there's many people who have seen this who don't know exactly how good this is. So they should definitely go back and watch this with the extra material.
There's one thing I enjoy whenever I see this happen in a movie is when you get unintentional animal interaction. like earlier in this movie, there's a scene where they're turning their car around and a dog starts chasing their car, which is clearly, I'm pretty sure it's clearly not intentional. There just happened to be a dog in that area that decided to go after them. And I really find things like that really funny, and probably a better example of this. I don't know if you've ever seen the movie Samurai Cop, but there's a scene where the main character is running around a block, and there's this dog in the yard who just runs right after him, and it's clearly unintentional, but it's just fucking hilarious.
And another thing I wanted to bring up, and this is sort of corny, but I think it adds to a bit of the charm. I like the poems that killer leaves behind. Like, it just sort of cracks me up because, so, you know, they're not Shakespeare, but they're fun. You know, like the whole, hey, it happened once, it happened twice. Cancel the dance, it all happened thrice. I mean, that's a lot of fun. One of my favorite scenes in the movie is somewhat toward the end, when after he cancels the official dance and he finds another heart in the box, and it says, hey, you did it, cancel the dance. And it's like, what dance? Like, the chef is just going mad. He has no idea what's going on, and little does he notice a bunch of teenagers having a pretty fun time, it looks like. Oh, and speaking of which, I really like the location. The setting is fantastic. Like, even ignoring the mines, I think the mines look great too. But that one girl who's in the warehouse area with all the suits hanging up, that's I don't know, I think that looks pretty creepy. Just the suit strapping down, and you know, she has no idea who's doing it. I don't know, it just, again, the atmosphere is just, you know, intense stuff.
And I also enjoyed that one, that scene where the sheriff, you know, finds the old lady in the laundromat. Yeah. That just the extra footage from that uncut version really elevates that. That's
probably one of the more gruesome deaths. That's not something that I've seen that many other places. So I don't know, I thought it was pretty creative.
Yeah. No, I think that was the first one. As I was watching the movie, I was like, Jesus Christ. You know, when I first, because I bought the uncut version, like, as soon as it got released, back, it was like 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. Because that's one of the earlier kills in the movie. And, yeah, that just really set things up for all the other uncut goriness and violent kills that we get throughout the movie.
And who is it, like the bartender? It could be you. That guy's over the top acting just cracks me up.
Yeah, there's often one of those guys in a lot of these movies.
Apparently the actor died just the next year, by the way, after this came out. I was just going to say one other thing that sort of stands out about this movie, and I might be in the minority here, but there's a song at the end, the Ballad of Harry Warden, and Harry Warden is the killer believed to have escaped from the institution and came back. So it's a song called The Ballad of Harry Warden, which I think is probably one of the best songs written, you know, for a horror movie. I actually have it on my iTunes. I just think it's extraordinarily catchy. I like the lyrics. I like the music. And I just love the ending. It's an insane laughter, and then this song comes, and I don't know, it's just fantastic. I think many slasher fans, if not horror fans in general, I think this movie is decently well respected. I do know there are some people who like the remake more, and I don't know, I've only seen the remake once, so I can't really talk about it. Off the top of my head, the only thing I like about the remake is that it caused this to be re-released. So, you know, it's a one good thing it did. But I don't know, this movie, to me, it pretty much hits all the right spots. I've seen this like 8, 9, 10 times. It's not my favorite 80s horror movie, but it's like in my top 5. And I love this movie so much. You know, the creepy voice at the end. Sarah, will you be my Bloody Valentine? It just comes out of nowhere, and it's creepy as hell. And I don't know, this movie is, for me, it's an easy 10 out of 10. It's fantastic.
I mean, I don't quite enjoy it as much as you do, but yeah, I still think it's a really good slasher movie from the 80s. For me, I mean, the highlight is the uncut version with all the extra violence in it. I give the movie an 8 out of 10. It's a pretty good slasher from the 80s, and I don't think too many people would be disappointed if they're just after a movie that, has some good kills, and, if you're after a slasher movie in general, you can't really go wrong with this one.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you're a slasher fan and you haven't seen this one, and I would definitely recommend trying to get this one, especially, like Chucky said, the uncut version.
Yeah. See, if I had been reviewing the theatrical version, or we can call it the cut version, my rating would go down, probably down to at least a 7. But the Blu-ray that I've got, you've got both options, and I don't think there's any reason to ever watch the cut version, to be honest.
Yeah, so I think I've only seen the theatrical version once. So I bought this. I bought a DVD set. There's April Fool's Day, another classic slasher. So April Fool's Day and My Bloody Valentine on a two set, and that had the theatrical version of the movie. Just a low budget release. And then the very next day, I see the uncut version of My Bloody Valentine, and I buy that. So the first time I watched the theatrical version. Then next day I get to see the uncut version, and I don't think I've ever actually watched the theatrical version again. And like you said, it's not really much reason to.